is Trista, and welcome to Zero Casualties, and welcome to another cooking recipe from a vintage cookbook. This one is from 1928, and this is the first baking recipe I'm going to do out of this. Earlier this week I did a drink recipe, so we are going to try from page 127 the Southern Beaten Biscuit, and I was very intrigued by this one, as you will see shortly. So I have laid out all of my ingredients here. Before I show you how to make these, I will show you the ingredients. So I'm actually going to do 2 batches because I want to compare butter as the fat or shortening in the recipe to shortening, or a type of, vegetable oil product. So I have 2 cups of flour in each of these bowls. And then I have 1/3 of a cup of either butter or shortening. I have 1 of each here. I have a teaspoon of salt for each recipe. And then it says equal amounts of milk and water. It doesn't really say how much, but it just should make a stiff dough. So we're going to experiment a little bit. Somebody in pencil wrote 2 tablespoons next to that. So I'm not sure if it's each or 1 tablespoon of each. So we're going to try 1 tablespoon of each to start, and then go from there, because sometimes you have to guess around with this. So we also, if you wanted to make this a non-dairy recipe, you could either use this type of shortening, or you could use coconut oil, and you could use a plant-based milk in here. So that is an option. Let us go into the recipe next. See you in a moment. So let's get going with our biscuit dough. We have 2 cups of all-purpose flour here in this bowl. I have a whisk because the first part of the recipe says sift flour with the salt. So I have 1 teaspoon of salt here going in, and in order to sift it, instead of using a sifter, I usually just whisk it a little bit, and that's usually good. So the next part says, with the tips of fingers work in shortening and moisten to a stiff dough with equal quantities of milk and water mixed. So in this one, I'm going to put in the butter. So I'm just going to show you the butter dough because off camera I will be doing the shortening one just to speed it up a little bit for you. This is one of my favorite things to do. You can do it with both of your hands too, but unfortunately I cut my finger this morning cutting a bagel for breakfast, and so I don't want to get the Band-Aid finger in there. So this is one of my favorite things to do because I find it super relaxing and meditative, because you can just zone out while working the butter or shortening into the flour and salt. I do this on the weekends where I work at a tea house. I make a lot of scones, and I always work in everything by hand. You can use a fork or a pastry blender, but I've never found that to work quite as well. Plus, I'm one that loves to, really do things by hand and feel everything so that I know what is going on with the dough. Please let me know in the comments if you like mixing things like this in by hand, if you like that feeling, or if you don't. Either one is totally fine. I'm the same way with gardening. I usually don't wear garden gloves unless maybe I'm gonna pull out, you know, a blackberry or something, just because I like to feel the dirt and feel what I'm doing. So just a personal preference. Means I just don't do my nails very often because they just get ruined quickly. So that is mixed in quite well. You can see the texture of it is nice and crumbly. So first, we're going to try a tablespoon each of, there goes the water, and then a tablespoon of milk. So, oops, that almost went somewhere on me. Let's get that in there. And then I'm gonna mix this up with a spatula. I'm guessing we're gonna need a little more liquid in there. Let's go with 1 tablespoon more each. See if the person that was right that wrote that in pencil. I kind of love when you can get cookbooks with personal notes in them, especially when people mark recipes as, you know, good ones or tasty ones. A lot of times they'll make little notes. I find that fascinating. So yeah, so that is actually 2 tablespoons of milk and 2 of water. I still think we might need a little more. It's starting to come together. With these types of biscuit recipes, you do not want to add too much liquid. However, well, let's see. Let's kind of do a squeeze test. Well, I don't think that's enough. It really depends. So I'm going to do 1 more of each. I'm just going to go really slowly here because I don't want to add too much liquid at a time. Let's do 1 more of milk. It's the same way with scones and all those type of things. And pie dough as well. Okay, so that's 2 of each. I think that might be close. Yeah, that's really, it's starting to come together. So I'm just going to use my hands to get that put together. I can always add a tiny bit. Yeah, there's a little bit of dry stuff there, so I'm just going to add maybe just a half more of each. You know, you always have to play it by ear and see what works best. So I would recommend playing around with this recipe a little bit. There goes my oven. It is all preset now. All right, so I think that is enough. I don't want to add way too much. So the next step is going to be really interesting. I'm going to flour the board here. And I'm just going to show you the beginning steps of this because I got to get the other dough situated. But we're going to get all of that out on the board so you can see what that looks like. And these are kind of dry bits left over, but we will incorporate those. So the next step, it says, place on floured board. I like these kind of rubber mats to roll things out on. And beat with rolling pin for at least 1/2 hour, folding the dough every few minutes. So we kind of have it flat now. I'm going to start with a fold. I'm actually gonna bring this together a little bit more. There we go. So I'm not going to set the timer for the half an hour quite yet, but I just want to demonstrate a couple of, now bear in mind, I've never done this. So I guess you would beat it down like this. I'm going to make a lot of noise. And then turn it. So I'm guessing that's what I'm going to be doing for the next half hour. So I'm going to set this aside. Off camera, I'm going to get the other dough started, and then I will beat this dough for half an hour, but I'm going to be speeding it up so that you don't have to watch through all that. All right, I will see you in a little bit for the beating of the biscuits.
All right, we're back with two doughs. The one on the left has butter, the one on the right has shortening, and I did end up adding a tiny bit more liquid to each, a little bit of milk, and a little bit of water just because they weren't coming together quite as much, and I wanted to get all those dry bits incorporated. So we're going to go through the long process of beating these for half an hour and folding them. So I will be speeding this up, but I will be doing it half an hour, and then I will show how we roll and cut them out, get them on the baking sheets, and then bake them at about 400 for about 20 minutes. The cutter is going to be this cute little 2-inch cutter, which I find super cute. All right, I'm going to set the timer for 30 minutes, and while I am layering these biscuits, beating them up, I will contemplate life for 30 minutes because it's going to take a while. All right, here we go.
to roll out these biscuits. I'm going to do the butter ones since they held together a little better. It's supposed to be really thin. It just says 1/3 of an inch. So I'm just going to eyeball that as best I can. And it doesn't really say how many biscuits you should be able to get out of this dough. So we shall see. These recipes, I've noticed most of them, I don't think any of them really say how many servings generally you get out of the recipe. So it's just kind of a guess. This, of course, is really hard to roll. It takes even more of an arm workout effort. We're just gonna do the best we can. I might have to add a tiny bit more liquid to the other dough to get it to roll out properly. But anyway, it says to roll it to about 1/3 of an inch and then cut it out with the 2-inch cutter. These are relatively small biscuits, so I'm kind of wondering if they're a little more cracker-like. But, whew, okay. That's a little challenging to get through. So we'll see how many biscuits we get, and then we're supposed to prick them with a fork. And because this is challenging, I'm probably not gonna re-roll this. We'll get as many as we can out of the first go round, and that will be enough, especially since we're making 2 batches. How many of you love to make biscuits? I love biscuits and really any bread. I'm a kind of carboholic, breadaholic person. I love it. So anyway, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I think about 8 small little biscuits per recipe. And we're just gonna put it on a baking sheet like this with one of these kind of silpat mats on it. And I shall prick them with a fork shortly. Let me see, let me space them out really well, just so it looks cute, like a Lego. So there we are. The only difference is we're gonna prick these with a fork and get them in an oven at 400 degrees for 20 minutes. So I will be back once both batches are baked and I will show you how they look. Welcome back. It is time to do our tasting of the Southern Beaten Biscuits, a recipe from 1928. And so I have 2 biscuits here. They're called biscuits. They're not like the fluffy American kind we would normally think of. As you can see, there's no leavener in these biscuits, so they are just basically, you know, they don't rise a lot. So they're a lot more cracker-like. The butter ones seem not quite as flaky on the sides. And this shortening one seems more layered and flaky. And in fact, it just fell apart a little bit on the bottom. So let us do a tasting between the 2 and see which one, at least I think, is better. And these would be really nice with soup or with cheese, or any of that kind of, you know, cheese charcuterie platter, that sort of thing. So anyway, let's give it a taste. So what I think is This is just like a giant oyster cracker like you would get with clam chowder. That's my take on it. It's nice and kind of, I don't know how to say, not exactly fluffy, but it's softer inside, but it's nice and crunchy on the outside. And I'm not sure what effect all that 30 minutes of beating had, but it's certainly a lovely cracker, and I would absolutely love to have this with soup or a chowder. So that's what I would recommend for this. It could be part of a charcuterie cheese board too, but it would be great with soups. It's nice to have giant oyster crackers. So let's try the vegetable shortening one. I'll take off this little piece here. The texture is a little different on this one. It's not, it's a little harder, to be honest. Again, it would be okay for dunking in soups, but I feel like you get a much better actually texture with the butter one. So that is the version that I would stick to if possible. I have not tested it with coconut oil, on the other hand, which actually might be better. But if you can have butter, then I would recommend this one because it's a lot fluffier. They tend to cut better. The dough is also easier to handle. So that's what I would recommend. So if you like this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe. Please leave a comment down below on what you think of these beaten biscuits and if you would try the recipe. I'd be curious to try, not beating them for as long and see if it was still this nice texture. I'd be curious about that, but I'm glad I did the recipe as called for. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Bye. So my husband Paul and my son Adam are here to try the Southern beaten biscuits. So take it away, guys. We'll see what you think.
All right, we're gonna try and figure out which ones are butter and which ones are shortening.
So one pan is butter and one pan is shortening.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, well, I'll try this one first.
All right.
Do you want to do a half and half thing?
Yeah, it's probably a good idea.
Okay, I'll give you half of this one. Okay, here you go. They're tiny.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, they make me feel like a giant.
Yeah. Either that or like big crackers. But what do you think of that one?
They taste like crackers, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah, they're not like fluffy biscuits. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely not fluffy. They're pretty tough.
Yeah.
They're kind of like almost like an oyster cracker.
That's what Mom was saying earlier. Yeah.
Okay, let's try this one. I'll split.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Go.
You look a bit. Well, actually, maybe these ones just. This is like actually kind of similar.
Okay, got my opinion.
Thoughts? Differences?
I like these ones a bit better. I think they have a bit more flavor, so I'm guessing these are the better ones.
Yeah, these actually, I feel like they taste more buttery.
Yeah.
So I'd say butter, shortening.
You're exactly correct.
Ah, give it to me.
And I have to agree, I like the butter ones better. Just more flavor.
Yeah. It's not a huge discrepancy, but yeah, you can definitely taste it.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're good actually.
Yeah, I'm glad you like them. Just have to make some chowder now.
Oh yeah. Definitely, they'd be so good with chowder.
Thanks, you
approved.
guys.
All right, bye.